Last week, I had a chat with Michael Normanton from the Square Ball about everything relating to the Square Ball podcast, Leeds United, and a bunch of other stuff. It's a fairly highly edited, I hope, interview that I think you'll enjoy, so stick around till the end. I will see you in the recording.
Right, that's recording. We're both in focus. That's good.
Very good. Yeah.
So if you ever, you can edit it.
I honestly don't know if I'll include this bit or not, purely because it's like a behind-the-scenes video.
Yeah, you need to have the Netflix bit, don't you? Where you see someone sitting down and going, is that all right? Except it's the other way around because I'm the one doing that bit.
Yeah, it's weird to have like the host of a thing come in and be like, so, is everything technically fine?
I mean, Dan normally does double-check some stuff, but this seems to be working.
Do you need replacement Dan to double check anything, or is it probably fine?
I think it's probably fine. Dan just makes it look difficult.
Okay.
That's what I think.
Well, in the event that I do edit out the introduction, it's there, isn't it? I thought it was that one.
It's there.
It's so good. There's so many of
them. The one with a mini screen.
Yeah. Hello. Welcome to me being a little bit lost in the Square Ball studio. I figured I'd do a little bit of a behind-the-scenes-y video because I'm doing a sort of series inside football stuff, and I figured I'd look at fan media with Michael here.
Hello.
Who not covers the Square Ball, who is effectively the logistics of the Square Ball and the unending nihilism of the Square Ball at the same time.
I try my best. Yeah, you joined us on the busiest day of the year so far with merch. The Christmas jumpers are all going out, so that's good.
Yeah.
It's a side people don't always see.
I would like to deeply apologise for getting in the way of that.
It's all right.
I've done my best to help.
The majority is there. I've got about 15 orders left.
That's not.
I'd plug the Christmas jumper, but I think they probably have sold out by the time this goes out. So thanks for buying them.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions ready for Michael, but I figure we'll probably just sort of freewheel the vast majority of the conversation.
Absolutely fine.
So So first off, the Square Ball initially. Is it the oldest fanzine in the country or something like that? It's one of them.
It's one of them. I mean, there are not actually that many going anymore. There was a time when Leeds had a few. There was To Hell and Back. There was Marching All Together, which was kind of it was brought out in reaction to the far right distributing stuff at Ellen Road. So it was kind of an anti-racism one, and the Square Ball. They both died off, and the Hanging Sheep as well. Sorry, was another Leeds one. So there were at some point several Leeds fanzines. I think the majority of them died off in the 90s. Square Ball continued to the mid-2000s, then stopped for a couple of years. I'm not entirely sure when the last issue was that was produced not by us, but we took it on again for the League One promotion season, so 2009-10, and the podcast also started that year, and it's now, we've kind of still got the magazine there, but most people probably know it as a podcast as opposed to a magazine.
Yeah.
But we've got that heritage.
You've started to cut off the next question, which is exactly why I said we should probably freewheel the vast majority. So with that jump from sort of the written stuff to podcasting, what sort of made that decision happen? Why was there that switch from it's a magazine to shall we try this new AV thing?
Well, it was partly Dan was working in radio at the time and had access to the studio at Radio Air in Leeds, so we had access to all the equipment. And I know since we've started doing it, actually, the type of equipment you can buy for podcasting is like gone through the roof. There's hundreds and hundreds of different products now you can buy for doing these things. And things like we've got the Roadcaster there, which is connected to loads of other more complicated radio equipment under the desk. But things like that is now like 500 quid and you can get a mic and you kind of go from anywhere with it. But at the time we had the privilege of a good studio and we could go in and record. So Dan obviously had hosting experience from the radio. I didn't have any experience of any of it, but I was doing the mag with him and he was like, oh, we'll try this out. And Moscow, Daniel, however you want to call him, he had written stuff for the mag, but neither of us had ever met him and ahead of recording the first podcast. So we liked the way he wrote. So we just said, oh, we're going to try and do this thing. Do you fancy coming in? And it started from there. And we had Oddie on it as well on the early podcasts who had been involved in the mag since it started really, so since the sort of late 80s, early 90s. He then decided a few in that he wouldn't do the podcast. He said he just felt like he was listening to us three talk. So he said he wasn't going to do it anymore. But yeah, and that's how it started. It was every 2 weeks to begin with, and then over the years it sometimes more regular, sometimes less regular. As Dan got a job up in Newcastle, I had kids. It was all kind of drifted a bit, and then I suppose Bielsa arrived, and we were like, right,
Things are fun again.
Things are fun
I
again.
like talking about fun stuff.
exactly. People want to hear about this again, because for years Leeds were kind of terrible. I was still going to games, but I wasn't enjoying it. It was like, it's just something to do, innit? It was more or less how it felt.
That was roughly the era where I had been watching football for a bit, and then during the whole, I don't know the best way to describe it other than it was a bit of a swamp, where it felt like you sort of walk through mud every single time. So I just sort of like I drifted away. I was early teenage years as well, so things got boring fairly quickly.
Yeah, really from the League One promotion was fun, but there was all the bait stuff going on in the background. Even in the year of going up, there were kind of protests and things, and it was obviously not being run in a way that was, I guess, the way the fans would want it to be run. And then the first year up in the Championship, we had a bit of a chance of going up. We were in the playoffs for a lot of it. I think we got into the automatic spots very briefly. And then from that season, Grayson left, Gradle left, Snodgrass left, Howson left, Becchio left. And that whole squad that we went up with that was talented drifted away to the point where you had Neil Warnock trying his thing, and then into a complete mess of Chilino and a new manager every few months, and a churn of foreign imports who were never really good enough. So it was, there was a lot of drift in there, and I think a lot of people. There's a bit of snobbery, I suppose, at probably at any club where you say, "Oh, well, where were all these people when we were shit?" I've always been of the opinion that I can completely see why you found something else to do with your time, because it was shit. It was shit.
It was a mix of shit, and there wasn't really a way of watching it at that point if you weren't a match-going kind of guy, and it was expensive.
It really was. I mean, in the Bates years, that it was hugely expensive. There was a ticket price freeze for ages, and that was basically because Bates put the prices that high around the sort of late 2000s that everyone went, well, this is...
Yeah, there wasn't really a point in putting them up again.
This doesn't need to go up again, does it? So, and obviously 3 o'clock kickoffs, there's still no way to watch those.
No,
Nope.
Nope. I haven't done a single post-match review video on a 3 o'clock kickoff purely because I just...
How would you?
You can't.
How would you?
It's not possible. So, in terms of the original podcast, I'm guessing that wasn't in like a studio that you've got now. So, sort of, how was that developed?
Well, it was in a radio studio, so we had the proper setup with the mics and everything. We didn't have our own studio until a few years ago, so we were continued using Radio Air for a lot of it. Then Dan moved away. Some of them were done in the middle when they've become a bit echoey and rubbish sounding. That's because I was doing them in a meeting room at ITV, which is where I was working at the time. I just kind of stayed behind after work and didn't tell anyone what I was doing. Just went upstairs and used a room, seek forgiveness, not permission, and all that. But no one seemed to care.
No one's going to complain. It's fine.
Exactly. We were just moving our own stuff in there. But yeah, we had not the Roadcaster, but we had a different audio mixer at that point. Got a few mics, so we kind of set up in there, and that's when I think Moscow hosted them briefly, but they were really sporadic at this point because it was difficult trying to get someone to host them. It was difficult trying to get other guests in, and just the logistics of it all became difficult. But yeah, and then when we started back up again in the Bielsa era, Dan still he wasn't working at Radio Air, he was working at Metro up in Newcastle, but he still had access to Radio Air, so we were going in there to record. And at that point, we weren't generally going in and doing post-match ones. So it was just we'd go in there on a Tuesday night or whatever to record.
And then you'd record an hour or so and then just...
Yeah, exactly. I will say the early ones we recorded for a very, very long time, and Dan absolutely chopped them to bits to try and make them sound good, which I'm very grateful for, because I know we didn't know what we were doing, so we just kind of would ramble on for 20 minutes. And I think then Dan would come along and chop it down to sort of a tight 5 minutes in certain sections, but it was better for that, I think, and it helped us to. It undoubtedly helped us at the start that we sounded better because it was recorded on proper mics and then edited by someone who had kind of a background in commercial radio, which is very, very snappy. So he knew that you needed to keep it moving.
Yeah, I think in terms of editing and stuff, like I think my earlier bits, if you have a look back, is like very, very edited because I was like, what if I do YouTube Shorts? Everyone subscribes when you do YouTube Shorts, and then I realized that like that means no one gives a shit about your longer stuff. So I don't hugely edit much anymore, but I think that sort of helps with general like life and talking to people because you need to keep rolling and like, what am I going to say next? I'll work something out. It's fine.
I think that's where doing the live match ball ones actually has changed the way we do the normal podcast as well, because there was definitely a time, particularly in the early days, where if I messed up, I would be like, I'm going to do that again. And I'd say to Dan, just edit this, do it. I'm going to say that again because I tripped over something. I didn't like it. Whereas now, I kind of am all right with it. Yeah. And it's like the audience are okay if you stumble over something, or even if midway through saying it, you go, I don't know what I'm saying here. Sorry about that. And it's kind of, it's almost the informal nature of it, I suppose. The tone of voice is well enough established that it's a bit like a chat. So even though it's trying to be better than that, if there are elements of that in there, people will forgive it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's in that category of it's still human whilst being a professional podcast.
Yeah, that's the aim.
Like making mistakes sort of humanizes you a bit, and like occasionally slipping up and saying something like, "Sorry, I meant Peru or not Rutero" or something like that.
Yeah.
It means it's not too polished.
And if you do get things wrong, people in the YouTube comments will make sure
really
they do
fun.
correct you, which is good.
I can't even remember what it was, but recently there was one YouTube comment that like they'd got it wrong but were insisting, and I was like, I mean, I'll let you have it. I'm not going to bother replying to you, but sure, why not?
Yeah. The YouTube comments. I know in the early days I was kind of on there moderating it. I just don't look at them now. It's just easier not to.
I think what I tend to do is I'll look through them, and then if anyone annoys me, I'll just go, I'll just leave that. That's fine.
Yeah. For the most part, I just if I block it, it's the same. If I don't look, it's the same as that. Is what I'm thinking. So
yeah,
it's blocked as far as I'm concerned because I just don't see it. But I think generally speaking, people are all right.
Yeah,
we've got a fairly. I feel like we've brought our audience with us. We've never tried to. Even though we're on YouTube, we've never tried to do things for YouTube, if you know what I mean. We've just tried to bring our audience with us. So I guess we've not attracted a very commenty crowd, which is probably for the best, because you look at some fan channels, as I do for propaganda, and it's just a complete mess. Like the stuff going on under the line.
I think that's part of the reason that like I won't delve into the controversial stuff. So like if there's like a big argument going on or anything like that, I will just sort of like occasionally like I'll allude to it, but I won't speak about it, because if I have like a firm opinion, everyone that doesn't is going to shout that they don't.
Yeah.
And they won't be kind about it either, really.
People are generally right. The other defence we have against it is we've never tried to set ourselves up as experts. We've always been like more than willing to change our opinion on stuff, sometimes within a minute. Like you can just go, actually, now I'm talking rubbish. Don't worry about it. Don't take it too seriously.
Yeah, occasionally I'll have a comment that goes like, wow, you're really well spoken. You know so much about football tactics. And it's like, no, I just play some Football Manager sometimes.
I've learned some of the terms.
Please don't pretend that I'm an expert. Then you'll start listening to me.
Yeah, I mean, obviously my coaching is legendary, and all the stuff. People who listen to the podcast, they'll know all about the deep insight I bring and that sort of stuff. But
I do remember at one point I was playing 7-a-side, and I've only recently started playing outfield rather than in net, and I thought to myself, I could just kick it hard. And I kicked it hard, and it might have left the pitch.
Well, yeah, you've got a caged-in
pitch with a very, very tall fence.
You learn over time to control it, although I never have to, truth be told. I give this advice.
Not in the slightest.
I'm a dreadful footballer.
Yeah,
but I have tried.
That's why I play in what is self-described as the Fat Lad League, despite being
one of the thinnest men in the world.
Oh yeah. But it's like, if you're not someone that is like a Sunday league standard, fuck it, come on, it's fine.
I reckon I'm near the age of being able to sneak into walking football. I think. I reckon give it another 5 or 6 years, and I'll be able to pass myself off as over 50 and just get in there as a ringer.
It depends on the extent to which you're allowed to speed walk, I think.
And also, I might just get nutmegged by an 80-year-old man, which would be a bit embarrassing.
Yeah, there's I think a 73-year-old in our league, and he's one of the best attackers there.
Wow.
And every single time when I was in net that he scored a goal past me, I was like, I don't know how I've let that happen. You can have a pension. Stop it.
Shameful.
So what is sort of the day-to-day of the Square Ball, would you say? Because I'm assuming it's not all podcast. Because there
No.
is the Merchy bits, there's the Maggie bit.
Yeah, we've fallen into a routine now with stuff. So a Monday, typically, I'm nearly always at home because I do all the prep for the propaganda show we do, which is where we get all the clips from other people and other fan channels and stuff. We talk about them and talk a bit more about the game from the weekend. So that's Monday. Tuesday we'll come in and we'll record that, and then we'll tend to tag a bit on the end as well for the members show, which is the paying subscribers, so they get a bit there. Also on the Monday while I'm at home doing that, Dan comes in and speaks to Phil Hay, so that's the show that goes out on the Monday. The Wednesday typically come in and just post out merch, do bits and bobs, or then do the prep for the Thursday show, which is the sort of regular weekly show. So that gets recorded on a Thursday. Another bit of members show, and then Friday is Phil Hay. So that's another show that we record. Occasionally that gets done on the Thursday as well. And then obviously there's the match ball on match day as well, which in the championship there's quite a lot of midweek in there as well. We're recording this ahead of a midweek game, but yeah, typically there's one of those now. So we do the guide episodes as well, which was something we brought about in the Premier League, but we're not doing as many of them now because there's obviously the additional midweek game. So if there's not a midweek game, we'll tend to put out a guide episode as well, which will be about anything really. Sometimes really small little bits of Leeds United folklore, and like there was one about the transfer of David Livermore, for example, which is something that most recent Leeds fans wouldn't have ever even heard about, but it's like some guy we signed for a couple of weeks in the 2000s. So it's little things like that. Sometimes we'll cover bigger topics on it as well, or more well-known things. But yeah, it's just about whatever, really. It's just giving us license to talk about something that wouldn't otherwise fit for 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's something that you can just have a natter about and just sort of roll with.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I mean, that's kind of my work. There's also other people within it as well who are writing stuff for the blog. Right, Rob and Moscow take it in turns to appear on the different podcasts. Dan is hosting and then editing them all, and we've now got the video as well for YouTube, which goes to Lee, who edits the video, and he puts it on YouTube for us because we film it. You can do the live video switching stuff, but it records a feed of each video and then each camera, and then he kind of bolts them all together, adds some titles, does all the nice production stuff on it. So yeah, and then on a match day as well, I'm still, because this is a match day that we're recording on. Like earlier today, I drove the van full of magazines and merch down to the Lowfields, get a good parking spot so I can load and unload that quickly.
Things easier,
yeah, exactly. And then I'll be down there selling under my tunnel from about 6 o'clock. So yeah, it's busy. It's a busy sort of week, really. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that I feel sometimes almost guilty that I'm doing this as a job because it's not a proper job. But then I'm always doing stuff, so it must be.
I'm weirdly in the same spot with my stuff because I work for DAZN at the moment, despite never having visited the offices just down the road. And I've had a bunch of people be like, "That's such a lucky job. It's so nice." And it's like, well, yeah, but it's busy, and I'm always very confused because for some reason the events are never in English.
Oh, really?
I'm always doing Spain or Italy or Germany. I've done one UK event, and that's because I specifically asked to be like, I mean, it's an 8-hour event, and I'm getting paid for it, so go for it.
Fair enough. But yeah, it's just kind of expanded because we started off, with a podcast every couple of weeks, and now there's one basically every day that comes out. So it's strange how much you can say about Leeds United.
Yeah, I've tried to not say that much about Leeds United in recent weeks, but it's a weird one, isn't it?
It's good this year. I'm enjoying it generally.
Yeah, for some reason we're so hyperactive as a football club, despite the fact that we spent so long in the Championship and League One and Championship again. The fact that there's such rabidness around it sort of helps.
There's still a lot of demand for Leeds. I think it's the hangover of Bielsa, and it completely restarted football in Leeds. Did Bielsa? Like, people had drifted for so many years, and now even though he's gone and we're back in the Championship, there's such a level of interest there still. Because you look back at, to the late 2010s, there's 18,000 people there for a midweek game. And tonight we're playing Swansea and it'll be sold out, and they could have probably sold an extra 10,000 tickets for it if they'd really wanted to. There's such a lot of interest there again. And I just hope both as a fan and as someone who now does this as a business, that we can get back there and we can maintain it. Because I think the danger for us is if, you know, we find ourselves 4 years in and still in the Championship and kind of stuck a bit where we were before. But I'm fairly hopeful we'll get back there this season.
Maybe, yeah.
We should do. We should, and it's our best chance this season as well, because it's the season where we get to keep Somerville and Ruta.
We've not had time to lose the rest of them just yet.
Yeah. Whereas next year, realistically, are we gonna have anyone as good as Ruta and Somerville? Possibly not. You can sell them and you can build again, but you build a more championshipy team, don't you? Whereas it feels like at the moment we've got a couple of kind of cheap players in there.
Yeah. If you've come down and then you're on your second season down, it's a lot harder to persuade a 19-year-old from Ajax that we're the right place to come. Whereas if gone down, gone up again right away, managers sticking around, it's a lot easier to go, we were good. We could be again, maybe. But I think I'm in the boat of the 49ers have spent a hell of a lot of money and are someone that naturally looks for profit. So,
yeah, the stuff they're putting in place behind the scenes as well, it all is geared towards us getting back up and then being more professional than last time, which was, looking back at it, the plan was basically let Bielsa do it and hope it's fine, which did work perfectly for a year. But then as soon as Bielsa left, it was clear there was not an awful lot behind the scenes, whereas the stuff they're putting in terms of coaching and the directors of football and the various levels of recruitment and stuff that's going in, it does indicate we're actually, even though we're in the Championship, it looks like the backroom stuff is better than it was in the Premier League for a few years. So,
which feels a little bit weird.
It does really, but it's kind of reassuring that it's going on in the background and it's not just essentially Victor Orta doing all the football stuff.
Also feels a bit weird that the last time I was able to come to a Leeds match was 3 head coaches ago, and that was only in February.
Yeah, it's like back to the glory. I mean, when we're saying about when we used to do the podcast in the ITV meeting room, it was quite irregular at that point, and I'm pretty sure we missed a manager entirely because we went 8 weeks or something between. I think we might have missed Uwe Rosler or Steve Evans. No, Steve Evans was there a while. Maybe it was Milanic or someone. But
this is in the period where it just completely lost me.
We kind of came back like, oh, we've not spoken to you in a while. We've had since then we've appointed a manager, we've sacked a manager, we've got another manager. Let's just cover that off.
Let's just get on with it.
We've got about half an hour to just cover that off. What did you think of like the Milanic era or whatever it was at the time? So, it feels like things have settled down again this year, and Farke's going to be here for the year, isn't he? I'm fairly certain, and I feel like we almost know what the first team's going to be now, barring any injuries. So yeah, it feels nicely settled.
Yeah. I think literally the only question in terms of first team is, do we play our really talented 17-year-old or do we play the Tottenham right back? And as problems go,
it's pretty good. Yeah, and obviously Gray can go to the bench and come on for Kamara or someone as well. So it's nice to have options.
Yeah, and even is Grove Bulgarian? I think he's Bulgarian. Yes. Even a Bulgarian international is just consistently on the bench, and the fact that we can just say he's not even in his best position and he doesn't quite make our bench is quite good. I think. I'll take that.
It is. I think that's where this first season feels important because you have that kind of luxury in this season, whereas maybe next year the first team's not quite as good. The bench is probably considerably worse because, I mean, at the moment we've got Billy Nonto on the bench, who is someone who was interested in Premier League teams not long ago and they were willing to pay 20-odd million quid for him. So having that, whereas we were even under Bielsa in the Championship, we had, not to slag him off, but we had people like John Stevens would come on off the bench, whereas someone like Willie Nonto is obviously a completely different level.
So I had one more of the prepared questions. What is your match day like normally? So I know you've described van down to the low fields. Hour or two selling mags?
Yeah, I tend to try and get there about 2 hours before and drop the van down sooner because of the parking around it. You need to, because obviously I'm trying to sell and then put stuff back and then still get in for the game. So yeah, trying to do all that. And then after the game, I will walk back here to the studio. It's about 15, 20 minutes away. And then I'll record a podcast and I'll walk back for the van, pick that up, bring that back to the car park here before I can get in my own car and go home. So it's quite a long day on a match day, particularly a day like today when I've been in since did the school run, come in here, and then it's just merch and vans and podcast, and then finally get home about midnight. But can't complain really.
No, I mean it's a long work day, but it's a fun work day.
Yeah, it is. And there's in the middle, there's a football match that I would have been going to anyway, so I can't really include that in work, even though it is sort of work because I need to talk about it for a podcast, which is where I earn a living from. But equally, I'd be watching that game anyway, so it doesn't really count. No. And I mean, I've been selling the mags on the Lowfield since we started the magazine up, so having sort of agreed to do the putting together a mag, which I'm not actually involved in it at all anymore. That's not really I just do podcasts. Moscow puts that together. But when me and Dan started doing it, I was like, I don't mind putting it together and stuff, but I'm not standing selling it, and I'm still standing selling it. Like 13 years later, still doing it. But it's quite nice, and also as the podcast has got bigger, it means people come and sort of chat to you and talk about the podcast and stuff. It's nice.
Wills and probate and conveyancing.
People do yell that at me.
I did think so, yeah.
Which is fair enough, but it's it works. It's good advertising. That
it is. It's
who'd have thought the style of an idiot would make it actually quite memorable.
The style of fuck it, we'll do it on the night is actually worked out surprisingly well for Levi's.
Exactly. Well, podcast adverts you can skip past them, can't you? Normally, because you kind of go, all right, there's like a minute and a half section here, so you go give it a few little skips, then you're like, one more. Yep, all done.
There we go. But if you're informal, then that's not
exactly. So it's a deliberate shambles.
A deliberate shambles. Is that what we're using to sum up the square ball? Then I think.
Yeah, it probably is. The sort of elements of it that have to be professional because there has to be something out every day, and stuff has to get posted. But we try to always, I guess, reflect the fact that it's a bit of a knockabout as well.
A deliberately structured shambles.
Yeah. And it gives us the scope to do, daft little things that we want to do as well, which is like the walk, for example, that you took part in.
Oh, yes.
So, but like that's the sort of thing that if I was doing a full-time job and then trying to organise that,
then
it probably wouldn't be possible because it takes so many hours. But it's nice that having the square ball in the background means you can kind of go, I'll do that, and I've still got time to do this. And also, it's weird, like I feel like I work a lot, probably more hours than I used to, but because it's stuff that I like doing, or
it doesn't feel like it's as much.
Yeah. And like some of it is just, you kind of think, oh, this is work actually, but I'm also doing what I'd be doing anyway, so it sort of doesn't count. Yeah, like I'd probably be doing some of this stuff anyway, so I can not count it apart from when I'm explaining to my wife how busy I am.
In that case, everything's work.
It's all work.
It never stops.
It's all work. I'm very, very tired.
It's really, really hard.
Yes, it is. Yeah. It is very difficult.
In terms of the walk, by the way, I was going to ask you this off camera, so I can cut this if you want. What's the plan for the next year? Because I thought you said that wasn't
next year. Skip a year.
Okay.
Year after Newcastle. Yeah.
No.
Which I think, if you walk down the A1, it's about 93 miles.
Yeah.
But you can't walk down the A1. So, and because of hotels and footpaths and stuff, it's probably going to be 5 or 6 days, is that? And more like 120 miles. It'd be fun.
I still have a scar on my right foot from the last walk.
Well, it'll be tougher then. Perfect.
That's true. Yeah.
Or it'll open up. Who knows?
One of the two.
But yeah, that's the plan for that.
Okay, fair enough. Would you like that cutting out or keeping in?
Leave it in if you want.
Yeah, sure.
It's fine.
Thought it makes the edit easier, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. There was one last thing I was going to ask that always confuses me and I can't quite work out. So what sort of decides whether it's a Rob or Moscow kind of night on the match ball?
Moscow doesn't like the night.
Doesn't like the night?
He likes to be in his bed. So yeah, typically midweek games will tend to be Rob because also Rob has a car.
That helps. Yep.
So that's a major deciding factor in it. Yeah, I'm trying to think what else influences it. I think it's mainly just the time of night we get finished. So
yeah, I was wondering if it was a sort of who's about work it out on the fly kind of thing.
Yeah, there's a bit of that as well. If someone has to be somewhere, we'll work around it. But yeah, it's nearly always me and Dan, and then one of the two.
One of the two.
Who's your favourite? You'd have to say.
The one that writes for the blog is my favourite.
Okay, that's both of them. Good.
Yeah, there we go. I think I've negotiated that right.
It's fine. They know. They know that some people like them, some people don't. It's the way it is.
Some like some like the others.
Everyone else has the favourites, don't they?
Yeah.
If it's me, good.
There's a reason I keep DMing you for these, and it's because I know that you'll reply.
Yeah, I'll say yes to anything.
A little bit suspicious. Right, I think I'm going to wrap that up there. Thank you for your time, Michael.
It's all right,
much
pleasure.
appreciated. I will probably send you another DM in 2 months or something.
It's fine, yeah. Pop in again.
Will do, yeah. I know where you are now. You can't escape it.
It's true.
Brilliant, right. Yeah, thanks for watching. I'm going to do the cheesy YouTubey bit that Michael never does. Like if you've enjoyed it, comment below what you think either about the square ball. We've talked about comment sections. You can just slag Michael off. He's not reading mine. He's not reading his own.
Someone once said I had a head shaped like a butt plug.
Oh, I know.
So you can put that in the comments if you want.
If I remember right, your nickname in the group chat was Blunt Force Trauma for a bit, wasn't it?
Well, it's a good job. It's a good job I'm old enough to take it. Don't take things too seriously, anyone. It's fine.
That's not old enough to take.
No. Well, whatever, really. People can do what they want with their spare time, as far as I'm concerned.
Sure. Within physical limits. Subscribe if you're not yet, and become a member if you want, but it costs money, so I know that you probably won't. I wouldn't either. Anyway, see you later.
I wouldn't either.